Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 8, and this is going to be my trailer breakdown for Episode 6 for this season, otherwise entitled Untitled. At the moment, I don't have an episode title, but yeah, here's the trailer, let's watch it, and then we'll break it down.
I love you both. Keep the future safe.
I'm gonna make you proud, Dad.
Oh my god, the whole timeline's in flux. Figure out where we messed up and put things back the way it's supposed to be.
Who are you two? Why are you here?
This is where the change happens.
This is where Dad was struck by lightning.
The Flash returns with new episodes in 2022, only on the CW.
So yeah, as I said, this episode, for me at the moment, when I'm making this video, recording it, everything like that, does not have an episode title. Hopefully, by the time this video goes out, or shortly after, the CW will upload the official trailer on their channel, which will have the episode title. At the moment, we don't know. And along with that, there's actually no synopsis either. So we're going into this episode just basing it off the actual trailer, which can sometimes be misleading, but yeah. Alert, alert. This is Pagey from about an hour and a half after he recorded that initial audio. I have just been able to do some sleuthing and find out that this episode is called Impulsive Excessive Disorder. That'll probably already be public on like the official trailer by the time this video comes out, but I managed to dig my way through the internet. And also episode 7 is called Lockdown. A bit meta, a bit relevant there. Don't jinx it, don't make us go into another lockdown Flash, but yeah. Impulsive Excessive Disorder. That's episode 6 title. But of course, last episode was the finale to the Armageddon event, part 5, where they wrapped up the whole conflict that was going on between not only Barry and Reverse Flash, but also what was going on with Despero revealing his true intentions. Him going away, they didn't properly defeat him, so I don't know if he'll come back in the near future, or maybe in a future crossover, or something like that, but Despero is definitely not gone for good, you would have to think. But of course, towards the end of the episode, well, actually right at the end of the episode, the cliffhanger, we'll mention the Flash got his gold boots. So we have to mention that. I think I'd be a bit ignorant to not mention that. The Flash finally got his gold boots in a very cool sequence. But of course, right at the end, the cliffhanger for the episode, before we go on this break, which we'll talk about in a second, we got two officers walking through CCPD where we slowly zoom into a black and white photo of just the CCP, the Central City Police Department, on New Year's Eve in 2014, when all of a sudden there's a flicker of yellow and purple lightning, and Bart and Nora all of a sudden appear and are in the photo. They've changed something where they're now in that photo, and of course we had Eddie and Joe in that photo. I'm thinking YouTube-wise, in that photo, as well. So, yeah, that's quite the way to set it up. Now, as I said, there's no synopsis for this episode. So yeah, no synopsis, but of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your various thoughts, opinions, theories, predictions, everything like that. I'm always curious to read them. Let me know them in the comment section down below. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you're looking forward to this episode based off the trailer, want to drop a like on the video to show support and excitement. So the first thing that needs to be mentioned before you actually break down this trailer, the return date. I don't know if it actually mentions it in the trailer. I don't think it does. I think it just says 2022. So yeah, 2022, next year, even though next year is only like 2 weeks away, but next year it comes back. We're actually on a 11-week break, I think it is, about 2.5 months, and we don't come back until the 9th of March. So March 9th, we come back with The Flash with this episode. And you might be wondering, well, what the hell? Why are we on such a long break? They never go on this long of a break for a mid-season thing. And it's just because they have to get the episodes done for a bit, but they're not too far behind. Like, I think they're pretty much on track where they could probably premiere this episode in like February or something like that. But they need to premiere Superman and Lois and Naomi, the 2 new shows, and they're putting it on Tuesday night because then Batwoman and Legends come back on Wednesday, so they can't put Superman and Lois and Naomi there. Tuesday's the only free slot in January where they would want to put Superman. So Flash is stuck in this sticky situation where it probably wouldn't premiere for like another month, so it has to sort of like, I guess, let the other shows finish, or at least Batwoman and Legends finish, and then Flash will come in and start their news, or this episode and the rest of the season on Wednesday. So Flash is changing from Tuesday to Wednesday for the back half of this season. I think it will go back to Tuesday for next season, season 9. But yeah, so we can talk about that when it gets closer to that date. But But this is the first episode in a 2 or 3 episode run of Interlude episodes. Now, based off the trailer, I think they learned their lesson from last season, where two of the three Interlude episodes, which were episode, I think, 13 and 14, were some of the worst episodes of the season. This one looks super fun and speedstatastic. I think that's a good word. If that's a word. So hopefully the others that follow it are like this in some way, even if they're not as good as this one looks, at least if they're, in the same tone and they're made to be fun, if you know what I mean. So they're more like Enter Flash time filler rather than like Rayo de Luz or whatever that episode was from last season. But let's jump into the actual trailer because, oh boy, there's some shenanigans going on. So we have Bart and Nora, as well as Eddie Thawne. They're guest starring in this episode, but one character which is not seen in new stuff for this episode is Jay Garrick. There's actually a shot from the season 7 finale, just a reused shot, I think, and you can see Jay in the background. You see like him like blurred out. But Jay Garrick is in this episode, we know that, but there's no new footage of him in whatever role he's playing in this episode. I don't know necessarily where he's showing up, specifically what his role is, but if we know Jay Garrick, he's sort of like the knowledgeable one. Bart and Nora are time traveling. I think we could connect the dots and he might be going, hey, you screwed up, didn't you? So I think that's what Jay's role might be to a degree. Might be more than that, but something along those lines. But by the looks of it, this episode and the story that Bart and Nora will be going on in this episode starts at the end of season 7, or at least the events of season 7 at like the renewals of Barry and Iris's vows that we saw. They finished off season 7. That's where we're starting. Now, this is interesting because Armageddon started 6 months after season 7's end. So I'm very curious to see if there is any present day stuff throughout this episode, probably towards the end, where that lines up. That's what I'm very curious about. And obviously that's going to be a wait and find out. And in the case of waiting for this episode, it's a long wait. So we'll have to wait and see, even though that's a long time away. But one big question is, what specifically triggers the timeline changes? Like, not what is a timeline change that we see, because that's obvious in the trailer. The trailer makes that pretty obvious in multiple areas. But what triggers something for that to happen? Did they have a stop off on their way back to the future? Were they like, hey, before we go back to, 2049 or whatever it is, do you want to go to, back to when Barry first started as the Flash and see him run around? Or do you want to go to 2008 and I don't know, what movies was Spider-Man 3 in cinemas in 2008? I think that might have been it. Was Iron Man? Let's go watch Iron Man in theaters or something in 2008. Maybe they went and did that, stepped on a bug, and all of a sudden you have butterfly effect or something like that. We don't know specifically what they've done, but we are dealing with time travelers, so you never know what can change the timeline in any form. And it also makes you wonder and ask the question, is this connected to Armageddon in any way, whether it's the actual event or the fallout from Armageddon? That will be very curious as well, because we do have these 2 or 3 interlude episodes, and this is the first one of those episodes. So is this going to be really it's going to be very contained in its own thing, or will it expand into the other episodes and other stuff going on this season? Once again, it's for us to wait and find out, but because we're dealing with timeline changes, that's always a decent possibility. Now, in the Flash Museum, we actually do see them in the Hall of Heroes, which I think we've only been in once. I think we've only been in there once, and it wasn't like a massive look at it. So we get to be in there again, hopefully get a better look at it, which would be pretty cool. But we see them in the Hall of Heroes, and they're looking at newspaper from history, most likely looking at whatever the time, the change in the timeline were. We get a couple of random ones. Just it's like something about like a high school science fair and like a baseball team or something. Then there's a article with multiple CCPD officers being killed by Zoom, except for Joe. And I'm 99% sure this is that jitters scene from season 2 where Zoom snaps all those officers' necks but leaves Joe alive. I think that might be what this is, because obviously it says Zoom did it. And that's when Zoom killed a lot of people and left Joe alive. So I'm pretty sure that's what that is. However, then we get another article, and we thought Joe was safe from the last newspaper article. Nope, Joe is dead again. He's dead again. This dude just keeps dying, but then not dying at the same time. But he's dead again, shot in a jewelry store heist on New Year's Eve in 2013, or at least the newspaper is from New Year's Eve or December 31st, 2013. So maybe it happens on the 30th, the day before, and then it gets reported the next day. I don't know. Now, of course, the shot from the end of last episode with that picture has them at a New Year's Eve thing in 2014, not 13. So they go to multiple time periods, or specifically in the case of Joe's death, and in that photo, multiple New Year's Eves. It was like, just, I don't know, did they just thought that was funny? I don't know. Now, I saw some people saying it's a timeline change, just that photo, because Eddie's in that photo. But Eddie dies in 2015. He doesn't die in 2014. So yeah, if that said New Year's Eve 2015, then that would be an issue because Eddie dies earlier into 2015. But that photo says 2014. So Eddie would be still alive and thriving on New Year's Eve in 2014 in timelines we have seen previously. But speaking of Eddie, we do see him and Joe pull up in a car, and this is most likely to the jewelry heist where Joe originally dies in whatever happens in these changes. And I'd assume this is where Bart and Nora will intervene and stop it happening. But if they do that, then does that change the timeline even further? That's the big question. So they won't think they're fixing it, but then it can just create another issue. So I wonder if that episode, or this episode might have say, will dive into that. Like, you think you're fixing something, but you just keep making it worse and worse and worse each time you do it. It's like when you spill, I don't know, has anyone seen the Mr. Bean movie? When he spills like he sneezes on the picture and he tries to clean it and just makes it worse. Probably put a quick clip on the thing, just keeps making it worse and worse. That could be what Bart and Nora are doing in this episode. Or what we could see happen is that maybe there's more than just one thing that goes wrong throughout the timeline that needs to be fixed. So it's not just Joe in 2013, December 30th or December 31st, whenever it is. Then there could be something that happens in 2015 or 2014 or even like 2009, something along those lines. And it's Bart and Nora trying to find the source of why that's going wrong. Now, the only issue with that is that it could be seen as a bit somewhat similar to the Armageddon thing, but it's just time travel. So I think it might just be one core thing, and they have to try and figure out why that specifically happened. And that'll be somewhat interesting to see how they figure that out. But yeah, Bart and Nora aren't just in their disguises that we see them in at parts in this trailer. We do get to see them in their speedster suits as Impulse and XS. And it will be interesting to see if this impacts the timeline, like having two speedsters potentially just seen in the open in present day, or at least in like 2013 or 2014, before the Flash actually makes himself known to Central City. Like, that'd be fairly interesting. Looks like they're in like a department store or something. It looks like there's one of those signs that says like 4 for $20 or something in the background. It's hard to tell because it's blurred out, but it seems like they're in something like that. Or this could be the jewelry store. Maybe the jewelry store's having a sale. I don't know. Now, the period in which Joe is shot is when Barry is actually in the coma after being struck by lightning. So in the end of 2013, Barry's in that coma. Barry was in the coma until I think March or when was it? It was in like that first half of 2014. So he got hit by lightning at the end of 2013, and that coma went till early parts of 2014. So Barry's in the coma at this point that Joe is apparently shot in the jewelry store. So that would be a terrible time for Iris. Like, I guess at the time, like, what, foster brother? What would you call him? I don't know. I don't know what you'd call Barry to Iris. Person that sleeps in my house. I don't know. Whatever you'd call him. Barry's hit by lightning, in coma, could potentially die, and then Joe gets shot. And at this point, like, Iris's mother is estranged. There's no Wally. Maybe, I don't know. I was going to say that then maybe that could draw Iris to Eddie. I don't know. But anyway, that would be a terrible time for Iris. So Bart and Nora will see the aftermath of that incident after Barry gets struck by lightning, but there's no Barry in this time period, of course, or at least him walking around in public. Now, I mentioned Iris, and this makes you wonder, will we see a younger Iris, or Iris from season 1-ish? And from memory, Candice Patton did post pictures on social media of her in a Jitters uniform, or like outfits that she wore when we saw her in episodes where she worked at Jitters. So I would say that's likely, especially if Eddie and Iris were dating at this point or were talking to each other before dating, something along those lines. So I think that's a pretty likely thing that would happen. Now, something that would be interesting if they do go down the route where Eddie and Iris are potentially dating at that point or seeing each other is if Bart and Nora see that. Especially if they do learn what happened to Eddie as well. Like, if they learn that Eddie died, then that could be an interesting conversation, or just to see their reactions to, especially if they learn who he's related to and the whole events of what happened there, how like Eddie was with Iris and then all the drama around that. Like, that'd be, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see what their reactions would be. I mean, gosh, the events in this episode could open Well, it could open quite a big can of worms if it wanted to. Like, a lot of drama could come from it if they wanted to. Now, I sort of touched on this before, but does this episode actually have proper impacts on the timeline? I mean, they are in that photo at the end of last episode, so they impact the timeline in at least that way. So if someone's walking past there, they would see those two. Like, I'm sure, like, would Barry ever walk past there and see those two in there or something along those lines? Does that impact the timeline in any way, shape, or form? Is that them having fun and just mucking around because no one would see them? I don't know, but it makes you wonder whether there's actually going to be proper impacts on the timeline in like a small or larger way, or if that's just a bit of fun. We'll have to wait and see. Like, I would have no clue what they have planned. And obviously we have Impulse and as well as Excess in this episode, but Jordan Fisher, who plays Bart or Impulse, is on Broadway for a bit. So he wouldn't be available for like the middle and most of the end part of this season. So this would be like the portion of the season that they were able to fit him in based off his schedule. So maybe we could see him come back onto the show later on this season towards the end, or maybe not. I'm not too sure what his schedule is with the Broadway thing. But due to that, without Bart, it'd be, I don't know if they would bring back Nora, because then you have to create excuses around it. So I think if we ever see like Nora come back, Bart comes back with her and vice versa. Like, I don't know if they'd come back on their own unless there was a specific reason for that. But then again, I guess if they wanted Nora to come back and Bart wasn't available, they could write a reason around that. So once again, it's a wait and find out, because I have no clue what the schedule would be like. But yeah, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions about all of this, your thoughts, theories, predictions, all that. I'm always curious to read them. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.